This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Oh, hi there. What is lost media? There really isn't an agreed upon definition. The Lost Media Wiki has their own way of thinking about it. The Lost Media subreddit has another. YouTuber Zolden made an hour-and-a-half long video on the topic. And there are constant debates in my comment sections. It seems like everyone can vaguely gesture in the right direction, but lost media encompasses so many different things that it's difficult to nail down what exactly it is. Does unreleased media count? What's the difference between partially lost and partially found? Can physical objects be lost media? What about canceled projects? There is a need to clarify. In the first part of this video, I'll focus on building a working definition by examining how the community uses it and analyzing each word individually. I'll finish things up in the second half by covering what constitutes lost media, what doesn't, and its different categories. Because I'm not the authority on the subject, I've asked a few other lost media YouTubers to help me out. El Supersonic Q, Sakura Stardust, and Blame It on Jorge to see if we can piece things together. So let's start by looking at how the two largest lost media communities define the term. The Lost Media subreddit says, lost media is media which is lost to the general public. That this media was intended to be viewable, or at some point was viewable to the public, but no longer is. The Lost Media Wiki echoes these sentiments, but adds, if it's completely lost or simply inaccessible to the general public, it belongs here. So the Lost Media subreddit uses the words it's trying to define in its definition. The Lost Media Wiki is a little better, but only really describes what kind of media belongs on its site. We're still left with some ambiguity, so let's see what the squad has to say about the question, what is lost media?
Lost media is an umbrella term for pieces of media, whether that be film, TV, music, even photographs, that were once available but are no longer available. And I think the thing that makes lost media is the mystery of where is it? Does anyone have a recording? Is it out there somewhere?
I know there are a lot of gray areas when it comes to this question and what defines lost media, but as far as my own opinion is concerned, I feel that lost media is some kind of consumable, completed medium that was either intended for the public and was just unreleased. Maybe it was with a test audience and the only people who saw it were just staff and very select people who worked on it, or it could be something that was completed and brought forth into the world that just became unavailable for whatever reason. Maybe it was removed by the people who own it, or it just became lost to time.
To me, lost media refers to a piece of content that is not available to the general public. This can mean someone who created the piece is the only one who has it, or the piece is only viewable by going to a certain location, like a museum.
So let's get into the weeds of this and break down both words, starting with lost. In this context, lost means something that's been taken away or cannot be recovered. Pretty straightforward, but I'm going to make one change to better reflect the community by adding or unavailable to the general public to account for the way the larger community thinks of lost media. And now pinning down a definition for media proves much more difficult. It's a word with many different meanings depending on context, and in the last 100 years has changed dramatically. Media is the plural form of medium, and for our purposes it's defined as the means or channels of general communication, information, or entertainment in society, as newspaper, radio, or television. You can kind of think of media as the middleman for communication. This definition is too broad for our needs, making everything from folk songs, festivals, plays, cave paintings, and even smoke signals forms of media. And at one point this was true, but the definition of media began to change with the invention of the printing press and progressed rapidly in the early 20th century as radio, film, and television became the dominant forms of media. Older forms of media such as paintings or sculptures became referred to as traditional media. Jorge expands on this.
I took a media studies class in college, and yeah, toys and plushies are not media. They're not easily replicable. You can't send a copy to your friend or upload online or whatever. But again, that's not to say you can't talk about them or you can't solve them or they're not interesting or nothing like that.
Now, and in the context of lost media, the word media excludes traditional media and has come to refer to mass media, means of communication that are easily copied and disseminated to the masses through technology. Though there's some debate on the categories of mass media, the commonly used divisions are print, recordings, cinema, radio, television, the internet, and some consider mobile phones their own form of mass media, though there's an argument to be made that they only facilitate media rather than being their own unique form. It's really the and sometimes why of mass media. Mass media is not to be confused with mainstream media or alternative media. Both are simply ways of categorizing mass media outlets. The word media continues to evolve even today. Some are even starting to exclude print, radio, and television from the definition of media, believing they are now forms of traditional media. But for our purposes, media is defined as the means or channels of general mass communication, information, or entertainment in society. If you want an even clearer definition, we can add the 7 types of media. I believe these changes more accurately represent the modern usage of the word media and its usage in the lost media community. So putting it all together, what is lost media? Lost media is any means or channels of mass communication, information, or entertainment in society that have been taken away, cannot be recovered, or are unavailable to the general public. So now that we have a working definition, what are the different types of lost media, as categorized by the various lost media communities? Combining the ideas from the Lost Media Wiki, the Lost Media subreddit, and this nifty graph by Truth is Stranger Than Fiction, we have completely lost, partially found, found media, archived media, existence unconfirmed, non-existence confirmed, unknown source, unreleased media, and unidentified media. Some of these are straightforward. Completely lost media is entirely lost. No aspect of it has been found. But once we found anything, even a single frame of a lost movie, it becomes partially lost. And once most of the media has been found, it crosses over, becoming partially found. Though not all communities differentiate between partially lost and partially found. Found media is formerly lost media that's been recovered. Existence unconfirmed. These are fringe cases where some shred of evidence implies that there might be lost media, but we have no concrete evidence. A classic example is Yeah Yeah Beavis 1, a video game listed in an old magazine that's never been proven real or fake. Non-existence confirmed. This is the bad ending for lost media. We search for something we think is lost, but in the process, it's proven that it never existed at all. An example is A Day with SpongeBob SquarePants, a DVD mock-up for a movie that made its way to Amazon for pre-order. After an extensive search effort, it was proven that the movie was never made and was only ever just a concept. It never existed, and we know it. Moving forward, we get to some of the more debatable entries. Archived media, sometimes called hoarded lost media, is found media that has not been released to the public. Sesame Street is notorious for this, having many highly sought after pieces in their possession, but are unwilling to release them to the masses. In other cases, there are legal hurdles that prevent otherwise found media from being released, as in the case of Mean Girls DS. But it's debated if this should count as lost media. Sakura Stardust was kind enough to share her thoughts.
If we know somebody has something that is possibly the only copy of that one thing and they're intentionally hoarding it, that means you can't just go to a store and buy it, you can't download the ROM if it's like a video game. It remains unavailable to the public still. All in all though, if somebody's intentionally hoarding a piece of lost media and not making it viewable or obtainable and consumable, then I feel like it's the same as it being lost in a warehouse somewhere where nobody's aware of it. It's still very much lost.
Unknown source. Unknown source is where things get murky. These are rare cases where we have media, but do not know where it came from or what the original source is. Usually in these cases, the media that we have has been altered in some way from the original. An example is Celebrity 6, the case of a collage of celebrities where all the celebrities have been identified and the original images they're based on tracked down, with the exception of one, Celebrity 6, who remains unidentified and the source photo has never been determined. An even more famous example comes from the Jeff the Killer image, where no one's been able to unearth the original, unedited photo. These cases veer into general internet mysteries, and it's debated whether or not they should count as lost media. Unreleased media. If unknown source blurred the lines, unreleased media is where things get heated, because this kind of media sits on the absolute fringes of how we define the word lost. These are cases where media was created but went unreleased. You can even break this down further into a subcategory of unreleased media that was never meant to be seen, such as some TV pilot episodes or test animations. These were part of development, but were never meant to be viewed by the general public. Some argue that media that was never meant to be seen by the public doesn't count as lost media, categorizing it as unreleased media. Both Sakura and Jorge have different thoughts on the subject.
I mean, again, there are a lot of gray areas, but I feel like if it's something that's known by the public in some regard and is complete somewhat, it does count. I feel like it could go by a case-by-case basis, but at the same time, If it's something the public was aware of, be it through a magazine or through some kind of promotional material where people are aware of it, therefore it's lost, I think it counts.
So this is a big divisive question. For example, the Ghibli pilot, when that was found, some people wondered, does this count? It was never meant to be released. We weren't meant to see this. And you can't really lose something that you never had to begin with. So when you take the definition of lost media to its strictest form, then no. I think stuff like the Ghibli pilot, the Drake and Josh pilot, basically any pilot would be unreleased media. Now, that's not to say you can't talk about it or it's not interesting. It still sort of falls under that lost media umbrella term, but I think there is a small difference between the two.
I'm in the camp that thinks unreleased media and lost media might as well be the same thing, since they're both inaccessible to the general public. But at the same time, I don't feel comfortable using these cases as a justification for modifying the definition of lost media, because I understand why members of the community disagree. Again, we're working on the fringes of lost media. Now, moving on to unidentified media, we are officially outside the lost media umbrella, but there are some exceptionally rare cases that can be included. These are cases where someone will vaguely remember something, but can't find the name of it. There are other communities dedicated to such cases, like Tip of My Tongue or Help Me Find. But the lost media subreddit gets these types of posts constantly. People even do this to me in the real world. When I tell them I'm a lost media YouTuber, they'll describe a popular TV show or movie from their childhood and get really impressed when I pull it up immediately. Unidentified media is the most annoying thing about the lost media subreddit. But I understand why there's confusion, because at some point, unidentified media becomes lost media. A famous example is Clockman. It started off as an urban legend of sorts, a handful of people discussing a cartoon they saw as kids that they couldn't remember the name of, only recalling a handful of details. What I just described belongs on Tip of My Tongue or Help Me Find, and is not lost media. But at some point, Clockman tipped. After enough people remembered the same cartoon, it became apparent that this was real, but could not be found anywhere, making it lost media, even though it still fits into the category of unidentified media. Another example that's less clear-cut is the lost commercial Hitogata, a PSA that a huge community remembers airing in Japan, but after nearly 20 years of searching, no one has found it or can definitively prove that it exists. It's currently an urban legend and has some overlap with the existence unconfirmed category, and may someday be proven real. Okay, let's move past the gray areas. What is not lost media? Canceled projects. If something was never made, it can't be lost. There are some aspects of canceled media that can be lost media, like a script for an unmade movie, concept art for an unfinished video game, or even footage from a TV show that was shot before the project was canceled. Cases of lost authors. These are instances where we have the media, but we don't know where it came from. The most well-known example is the most mysterious song on the internet. We have the media, but we have no idea who made it. It's kind of a case of reverse lost media. It's very interesting and attracts the same kind of people, but it is not lost media. Physical items. This goes back to the definition of media. The way we define media in modern times excludes physical items such as paintings, sculptures, or plushies. These fall under traditional media, and all major lost media communities explicitly exclude it from their definition of lost media. And last, internet mysteries in general. Many pieces of lost media are internet mysteries, and internet mysteries have some crossover in the lost media fan base. Not all internet mysteries are lost media. So I've laid out to the best of my abilities the definition of lost media and its different types. But the real answer to the question, what is lost media, honestly, isn't that important. It's up to the community to decide what they want to include under the umbrella term of lost media, no matter how it may stray from any logical dissection of words, especially a word like media that changes alongside technology. L Supersonic Q eloquently explains this idea.
I think the term lost media is malleable and can be used more loosely, like when referencing a piece of media whose origin is the only unknown factor, or when it comes to something like physical items. While figures and plushes don't exactly fit the definition of media, it's a fitting term to describe the mysteries that the collecting community has run into over the years, and gives important pieces like prototypes and company history a more important home. Not to mention, the physical items that people have taken an interest in require searches that by definition fit the way in which people find those common types of lost media. I don't think that just because we might be sourcing where an item is physically, that means it has to operate separately from the term. But in all of these cases, the conclusion I've reached about lost media over all these years is that lost media remains lost until its content or knowledge about it is made publicly available. It's in that result, when everyone can view and enjoy a piece of lost media, that we can definitively change its status from lost to found.
In the last few months, I've gotten more emails and comments about mysterious songs than I have on topics I would actually define as lost media. And I love it. I love the passion the community has for mysteries of all shapes and sizes, and I am proud to be a part of it. This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the all-in-one website platform empowering creators, entrepreneurs, and passionate individuals to create their online web presence and launch their dream projects. Now, when it comes to Squarespace, there are a few features that really stand out. First, let's talk about their fluid engine. This intuitive engine enables you to easily customize your site thanks to its drag and drop system that makes customizing a website surprisingly quick, effortless, and fun. Even their selection of professional website templates were so easy to use, providing a solid foundation for a great website, but at the same time, never limiting you creatively, allowing you to make everything your own, ensuring that your brand is never compromised and truly stands out online. For those of you looking to start an online store, Squarespace has all the tools you need, whether you're selling traditional media, digital products, or service products. And if you're selling merch, Squarespace even has tools to design products and handles the production, inventory, and shipping for you, making things streamlined and easy. And all of your content can be stored and organized with the new asset library that simplifies the way you manage your files and allows you to use them across the Squarespace platform. And there are so many more impressive features Squarespace has to offer, so go check them out for yourself. Head over to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch your dream website or domain, go to squarespace.com/allthingslost to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Huge shout out to my top tier Patreon supporters. Can you say Rogue Goat Mafleur, Miss Dana, Vinny Cataldo, and Odesta Honeycrisp? Thank you all so much. This is Mike with All Things Lost. See you soon.